When to use horizontal versus vertical buttonholes. Let me explain. I'm Suzy Furrer. Horizontal buttonholes tend to be more stable after 3/4 of an inch. Vertical buttonholes are limited to a length of up to 3/4 of an inch. This right here is a vertical buttonhole. This here is a horizontal buttonhole. Go through your closet, look at the shirts in there and where buttons are applied. Look at those buttonholes and see whether they're horizontal or vertical. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. Up to 3/4 of an inch, you can use a horizontal or a vertical buttonhole. Over 3/4 of an inch, you're going to want to use a horizontal buttonhole. The reason it's more stable, vertical buttonholes, when you're putting a button in a vertical buttonhole, that button can slide up and down a little bit. So if your buttonhole is bigger than 3/4 of an inch, it could make the top of your shirt uneven because that button can slide up. There's too much play. There's too much room for it to move. Same thing, that button at the bottom. It could shift that base so it's not even. It's shifted a little bit. So you want to pay attention to the stability of the buttonhole. Okay, vertical buttonholes are going to max at 3/4 of an inch because of that play. They also tend to gape a little bit more. Vertical buttonholes, all of that thread can make it weighted down a little bit. So instead of that vertical buttonhole sitting cleanly like this, it might start to droop a little with the weight of the thread. So that's the reason vertical buttonholes max at 3/4 of an inch. Now looking at this shirt, this is interesting. We have vertical buttonholes here, and most button down or button up shirts have vertical buttonholes. So the difference between a button down and a button down shirt has the collar buttoned down, like this shirt right here. Okay, a button up shirt doesn't have the buttons on the collar.
Hey, sorry for the interruption, but Emily here, and I want to tell you about a super cool offer that I have for you from Craftsy. If you don't know what Craftsy is, it is an online community with resource of millions of creative and like-minded makers where members can find endless inspiration, advance the skills you already have, or discover a new favorite hobby or craft that you've always wanted to try. Craftsy offers more than 2,000 exciting classes in over 20 popular categories, everything from sewing and crochet to baking and painting. The classes are broken down into easy to follow lessons and are led by friendly, award-winning instructors like me who share creativity, wisdom, and provide step-by-step tutorials. I loved Ashley Huff's sewing class on how to sew super cute skirts. I'm not much of a garment sewer myself, but she had so many approachable tips and tricks on how to make this pattern so easy with her instruction. And I also loved Brenda K.D. Anderson's crochet class on how to crochet rainbow home decor because, let's be honest, who doesn't love a giant rainbow pillow? She also had some amazing tips on how to turn your work when making curves in crochet. I got so inspired by Heather Thomas's class on creative finishing and edging for her quilt, and she reminded me just how awesome and fun it can be to embellish the finished edges of your quilt. She also taught me a new method for how to make the corners of my quilts even more precise. And a huge thank you to Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. The cool thing is though, as a Craftsy member, you will also have access to live stream tutorials where experts answer questions, share tips, and engage with the Craftsy community in real time, which I absolutely love. So the first 1,000 people to click on the link in the video description will get a full year of premium membership for Craftsy for only $1.49. So click the link below and let's get creative together.
Here we have your vertical buttonholes, and then down here, you can see we have a horizontal buttonhole. That's helpful in keeping that level of the base. There's no room for that buttonhole to slide around, making the base not level. Same up here, there's a horizontal buttonhole in the collar band, which also helps that collar stay level because there's no room for that button play, okay? So it's not unusual to find a combination of both vertical and horizontal buttonholes in a garment, especially in a button-down shirt. And here we have more of a vertical buttonhole to keep the collar buttoned down. All right, if I need a buttonhole bigger than, say, 1.5 inches, 1 3/8, I tend to go to a bound buttonhole. A bound buttonhole is a fabric buttonhole. As you can see, here's a little sample of a fabric buttonhole. I tend to go to a bound buttonhole when I need something bigger than 1 3/8, 1.5, because taking such a big cut in the fabric and having a vertical or horizontal buttonhole, it weakens the fabric too much. It's such a big cut. So I tend to go with fabric buttonholes if I need a buttonhole over, say, 1 3/8, 1.5. To summarize, I'm going to use a horizontal or vertical buttonhole up to 3/4 of an inch, but remember those vertical buttonholes max out at 3/4. And then I'm going to use a horizontal buttonhole up to, say, 1 1/4. 1 3/8 and beyond, I tend to move toward that fabric buttonhole, that bound buttonhole. So those are the guidelines to follow when considering buttonholes on your sewn garments.